Well, I mean, we've talked about world domination, Gord. I mean, let's just, I mean, we've already got three countries. Why not just unite the world?
And that's just one day in. Welcome, everybody. Today I have two special guests on, and I can't wait to tell you all about them. And I'm going to start off first with Kevin Kolbe here, who's a seasoned video creator, content coach, and former television producer and creative director with a passion for helping creators of all ages to share their gifts and make an impact in the world. He's known for his expertise in live streaming and video production, and he's the author of Live Streaming Made Easy. Welcome, Kevin.
How's it
And
going?
great, great. And now I'm going to share a bit about Ross before we dive in. Ross Brand is a live video strategist and author of the acclaimed 100 live streaming and digital media predictions series. And Ross has made a name for himself by helping businesses and creators leverage live streaming to grow their businesses and engage with their audience in meaningful ways. But today, our focus is on the fact that Kevin and Ross, why am I having trouble with your name, Ross? Have co-authored a new book called Video Podcasting Made Easy, which is now available on Amazon. And from what I hear, just after day one is having great success, which we're going to talk about shortly. And this book is designed to guide creators through the process of launching and growing a video podcast, providing practical advice and insights from their years in the industry. So again, welcome, gentlemen, and it's so great to have you here with me today. And can you first tell us a bit about that, how successful things were on day one? I hear you're kind of surprised.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us, Gord. It's
Yeah.
great to be on with you. Yeah, we hit number one bestseller in the US, in Canada, and in Australia. So
Wow.
I'm thrilled that there's
Congratulations.
been a good response already
Yeah.
to the book, and it was a blast working with Kevin, and the fun continues as we see some of the results come in,
Yeah.
and we continue to get reviews and feedback from people as well.
Yeah. It's great to start out of the gate, and like for Canada to show up the way they did is quite impressive because we're just like in the scheme of things a little small player, but that's great to hear. So
Yeah.
I'd like to start and ask a bunch of questions and some questions about practical tips, etc. But first, I'm very curious, what caused the timing or impetus for video podcasting made easy now? Is it because there's a big trend? Is it because of podcasting, or is it just the next evolution of where podcasting is going? Who
Well, I
who would?
mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I mean, podcasting's obviously been around a long time. So is video. I do think there's been video podcasting for a bit. I just don't. It's like AI. There's been AI for a bit, and then all of a sudden people go, "Oh, look, there's this AI thing." I do think though, with YouTube finally putting their planting their flag, whatever the analogy is, and on your channel, if you have anything that you deem a podcast, now you get that special tab on your channel. I think that completely changed the game and brought more awareness to it.
Mhm.
And then the idea for this actually started in a live stream that Ross and I were doing, I guess, almost a year ago, whenever my first book came out. And he asked me during the live stream, "Hey, you gonna write another book?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And said, it may be something about video podcasting. So that goes back to last year.
Mhm.
And then from there, Ross said, "Hey, would you want to do it together?" And then that's what started the conversation. So, I think we both thought about getting it out earlier, but it's just the timing and the way we did it just took a while.
Mhm. And so you also did a different kind of style in terms of executing to produce the content here. You did it through a conversational approach, and I'm curious to know, um, you guys are so great on your feet, and I know Ross doesn't like to prepare too much when he's doing things. He just likes to roll with it. So, um, I understand it did take a long period of time, but it was something you could just like pick up and continue to go. Can you share a little bit about that experience and compare
Yeah,
to you
Ross
doing
ought
your
to.
writing? Yeah.
Yeah, that was Ross's idea. He was the genius behind how we did it.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't think that we would have it would bring out the best of us to I write this section, then send it to you. You write that section, or we divide it up, and essentially we're writing the book as co-authors, but we're doing it separately. Whereas a video podcast is all about sort of hanging out together and having a conversation and interacting with each other. So we literally did this as though we were doing a video podcast. Now, we made loose outlines of the chapters, and within
hmm
the chapters, some of them we had a bunch of subsections, which we often didn't really look at once we got rolling in the chapter. But it just came together really nicely.
Mhm.
I had a great time when Kevin had me on to talk about my books, and then I had him on to talk about his books, and we just had such a good flowing conversation, and we both enjoy this medium and have a professional background and an online sort of second career, so to
hmm
speak. So I thought, it would really turn out to be something people would enjoy looking in or listening in on as they read it. And I hope it has that feel that we're kind of hanging out with you
hmm
and giving you our advice rather than something that was pen to paper or
hmm
keyboard to computer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and not that we didn't obviously edit for length and readability and to stay on topic. But I think I hope that that's part of what people enjoy about the book is the conversational nature that you almost get a sense of what it's like if we were doing a podcast.
Yeah. And I think because you both excel in that whole conversational side of things, it just to me seems like a natural way to go about it. But I'm curious to know, did you plan to do actual video podcast of video podcasting the book? Like, is there going to be some video accompanying this at some point, or is that a surprise, or is there anything you can share there?
Well, I mean, we've talked about world domination, Gord. I mean, let's just, I mean, we've already got three countries. Why not just unite the world?
And that's just one day in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, Ross is 100% right. Neither one of us, I think, wanted to like just okay, this is Ross's chapter, my chapter, and back and forth and back and forth. And I mean, I'm lazy, so and I'm fine with video, so we said let's do that. And then whether it was in the middle or whatever, we realized, hey, wait a minute. Now we've actually kind of killed multiple birds with one
hmm
stone because we've got now we can easily turn it into an audio book, which there is a plan for that. We don't have a date, and we'll probably have to finesse it a little
right.
for that. But we've also got now videos that we could turn into a course. We could start
Mhm.
whatever with it. We could release that. And during the way, we even talked about did we want to spin off just a video podcast around it? And that may still be possible at one day. I think right now we've we've both got so many other things going, and I don't want to halfway do something. But yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. I mean, now that's the beauty,
And
is that we've got the audio.
yeah,
Why not do an audio book at
yeah.
some point? So yeah.
And the cool thing is now that the book's out there, you're going to get all kinds of feedback from people's experience in consuming it.
Mhm.
And do you see that? I'm just wanting to compare like video podcasting to just the traditional audio podcasting. Like, do you feel that people need a different level of skill if they came from the audio space, that it's going to be challenging for them? Or how do you see this for people that are starting out? And I know you guys alluded to YouTube has made so many special things possible for now podcasting that was not formerly possible. So do you have a comment on that?
I think
Us.
one of the major themes of the book is that video is probably easier than you think it is,
Mm,
and people overcomplicate it. There's a lot of advice out there that is well-meaning from people who've been on the technical side of this for a long time. When I started live streaming, I had never done video before,
mm,
but the live streaming app Blab that I used at the time made it easy to host talk shows. So I opened my laptop, which had a webcam, and I don't think I looked at the camera. I don't think I had any real decent lighting or anything. I was doing, an audio show essentially, but with video, and I saw the impact that video had, even if it wasn't done at the highest professional level. And so I think if there's one message that I've tried to get across to people, it's always been, and I've been trying to do this for about 5 or 6 years.
mhm,
Just turn on your webcam or whatever camera you have when you're recording your audio podcast, because maybe there'll be a 3 minute clip in there or a 30 second something of impact that you can share on social media where video is the scroll stopper, not
mhm,
audio. And that will have the impact, even if the only goal is to drive you to your audio to an audio podcast.
mhm,
My feeling is once people turn on that camera and they get a little comfortable with the idea of it on, or they forget about it and they just do their thing, eventually they're going to go, well, isn't this silly that I'm not posting this on YouTube? And as
mhm,
Kevin and Gord, better than I do, YouTube can be your friend. I mean, YouTube can give you access to discovery and search and suggested videos in a way that the podcast apps really don't. I mean, look at Apple Podcasts and put a keyword, a search term in, and you might get 5 podcasts come up that haven't released a new episode in 7 years. There's not the same desire to match the listener or the same ability right now
mhm.
in some of the podcast apps. I can't say I'm familiar with all a zillion of them, but I am familiar with Apple Podcasts, and that's a lot of where the game's being played. So that's another reason to get on YouTube. The other thing I'll mention, because it was your first question, I think one of the things for me, in addition to YouTube, is just seeing in the culture. I mean, seeing in the U.S. presidential campaign, not necessarily the nominees, but seeing other major figures or people become major figures like Robert Kennedy Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy and others really make themselves into household names. I
Hmm.
mean, I
Mm.
guess RFK is a household name because of who his dad was, but really get their message out and build audiences and become bigger players than I think they would have by sitting down for 2 hour video podcast interviews. I think, the level of depth and substance is there. And you're seeing every time a celebrity or a big media personality or someone with a big social following launches a podcast, I'm seeing YouTube as being where their focus really is. And oh,
Mhm.
by the way, they're releasing an audio podcast. But the term podcast now, people like when people talk to me about starting a podcast, they're thinking, well, I'm going to get 2 cameras and I'm going to
Mhm.
light it. Like they're thinking YouTube and they're thinking video.
Yeah. And now that you've answered everything I had to ask,
Bye,
um,
everybody.
yeah,
Yes.
um, because you just mentioned that, I've noticed that the production quality of a lot of podcasts has gone so high. Like I look at things like Patrick Bet David and other people that have like panelfuls of people and they do their podcasts, video podcasts so regularly. And I go, wow, it feels like almost like a TV production, but it's a podcast. But I hope that shouldn't deter people, because I think what I heard clearly from you is because of YouTube's platform, the searchability, the discoverability, that was already built right baked into YouTube, just by them now giving, I'll call it, shelf space to podcasts, and so that you can look at your analytics and other things. Like, it's now bona fide and has special treatment inside of YouTube for access for both the creator and the viewer. That this is just like, incredible. Like, is the growth on YouTube compared to the other platforms much more prolific than nowadays? Like, I know the others, like Spotify and other stuff, has been around for a long time, but YouTube is really making its mark, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is no platform like YouTube. In fact, I was watching an interview earlier this morning with Sean Cannell, and I can't think of the other gentleman, but he was a marketer. It was funny because the guy has a pretty big following and evidently very successful entrepreneur, and he'd never heard of Sean. And I thought, okay, well, there's a great example. Sean's got
Yeah.
like 2 million subscriber channel. He's known in the space, but not everybody knows you just because you are. But, do I think YouTube will ever be dethroned? Probably not in my lifetime.
Mhm.
It has so much going for it. Now, sometimes people go, but it's not perfect. No, it's not. And there's no perfect platform. But there is absolutely positively no other platform that you can start from zero and see some moderate level of success, however you define success.
Mhm.
But, the one thing it has going for it is search.
Mhm.
You cannot go back to Twitter or X or whatever it'll be one day, or LinkedIn or Facebook, and search a video somebody did 2 years ago and find it.
Mhm.
You can, and the video you did 4 years ago is still getting views and things like that. And you can redo and add that. So yeah, then when you get that, and YouTube is continuing, because it's a business, they want people to
Mhm.
watch, they're adding more and more and more. Shorts came in because TikTok beat them to it, but now it's an option.
Mhm.
Now they're adding shopping, and it goes on and on and on. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of picking a platform and making it work, as opposed to, well, I've got to be on that and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and Rumble and Facebook and the next one that'll come up, and then what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, I think it continues to grow, and that's the thing. The other ones
Mhm.
are seeing declines and dips, and YouTube ironically continues to grow and is now even beating streaming on TV sets and has more viewers than Netflix and some of
Yeah.
the other ones combined. And that's on your TV in your home. So imagine that, sitting down, watching a video podcast on your TV. You don't even have to get out your iPad or your phone. Boom, whole new world. I
Yeah.
won't
And
say
that's
new
what
world, but
I'm
you get the
that's
idea.
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do when I go have lunch. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna put the TV on while I'm having lunch, and I'm gonna go right to YouTube. I'm not gonna flip around the news channels, the sports channels. I'm gonna go right to YouTube and I'm gonna find a video podcast and I'm gonna watch that while I have lunch. And that's where things have changed. And if somebody I'm interested in is a guest on TV, it's 5 minutes. It's in, it's out. It's the
Yeah.
general questions you'd expect. Whereas if they're a guest on a podcast, it's 30 minutes to 2+ hours, and
Mhm.
there's a level of depth, and you get to know them as a person, and you get to really evaluate their ideas on an entirely different level.
Yeah.
I
You
just
know,
thought of something too.
sure.
I just thought about this. If you think back to the last writer strike in Hollywood,
Mhm.
actors, I think it was like what, writers, directors, anyway. Where did the late night guys go to keep kind of fresh and serve their audience?
Mhm.
It was YouTube.
Yeah.
Conan was on there, Fallon was on there. They were all on there, and
Mhm.
and they were doing like unique stuff from their homes and things like that. And I mean, I remember watching a couple of Jimmy Fallon's, like, his kid was like holding the camera, and his wife would come in and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
that was on YouTube, nowhere else.
Yeah.
So, if somebody's really wondering about YouTube, take a cue from the networks that do that, or did that, to
Yeah.
just survive and keep that vibe going.
Well, I see a lot of that in some of your content, especially recently, more like relatable stuff, not just like producing a show or running through something, and I think it's this kind of thing that's now resonating with a lot of people. Um, I wanted to do a little shift now and get into some of the skill things that maybe people can learn from, because there's a lot of great stuff in the book. And one of the questions I had was, okay, I'm newbie, and I'm wondering, like, well, what special skills do I need to have to be a video podcast host? Can you just sort of like position that? And like, I know I've heard a lot so far that it's very similar to, now turn the video on, whatever, but when we think podcast, I do also think structure. So can you maybe shed a little light on that, Ross?
Ross, you want to
Thanks for the direction, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's got to, is going to be at a different place and a different way of doing this. Like I said, when I started, I just opened the laptop and used the built-in camera. I didn't really address the camera. Particularly, I really had you helped me, Gord, along the way with my lighting. I really didn't have a lot of idea about, was using some house practical lights and things. And, um, so I think there's the learning curve with all that. But I also think you can get up to speed faster because the baseline's people have leveled up. So, there's so many now. It's not just the people who have super tech experience or are, you know, uh, experts in building a set. There's a lot of people you can look to examples and say, okay, I could look at my camera more. I could get a couple of these lights. Companies are making lights that are basically for doing this, and it's easier to find. I can do better at addressing the camera.
Mhm.
And these are skills that you can pick up over time. But I think in terms of the baseline, get an external camera. Probably if you don't have any external camera, you can start with your phone, as Kevin likes to say, or
Mhm.
you can get an inexpensive but decent webcam, something like a Logitech C920, C922, and put some lights in front of you, and now you've got some of the basics. But remember, the conversation and the content is largely in audio if you're doing
Mhm.
what we typically think of as a video podcast, a
Right.
talk show. And audio is so important to video that I would say that don't 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 go out and get super expensive video gear and overlook the audio. You can much more affordably level up your audio than you can video, and ultimately not everybody is watching the three of us on screen sitting here for every second that we're talking. If the
Yeah.
audio goes out, there's no show. If the video isn't perfect and they find value in it, well, boy, they're
Yeah.
not running away from from a good conversation because every section of the video isn't lit perfectly or whatever. So I think there's a lot of, as Kevin said in the book, the audience gives you a lot of grace
Yeah.
Oh,
with
yeah.
video and with live video. But they won't, like Kevin said, they will not tolerate audio that's difficult to listen to.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you pointed out it doesn't take a lot of money to get your audio to a decent level. And what I really liked was in the book the way you guys handled progressing through the levels of the gear, that,
Mm.
like you were talking about Samson Q2U and the simplest way and affordable way to get going with your lighting and everything. And then you progressed to the more sophisticated things with multi-cameras and switching. And I think that was very useful education for someone to sort of see, well, this is, I can start here, and the future's there for as I develop my skill and interest to become more of a uh, higher quality producer or creator, right? So I like the way you guys really handled that for
Thank you.
everybody in the book. And now I wanted to ask about, okay, how about getting leads through video podcasting? So, um, can you share with us some suggestions about how you use your video podcast to help you generate more leads for your business?
Well, and this will relate to video as well. And it's ironic you mentioned the Samsung Q2U. I did a video, I don't know, 2 years ago, whenever, comparing that mic to another mic. And maybe a year later, Samsung reaches out to me and said, "Hey, thanks so much for shouting out our mic. Can we send you one of our new mics?" And I'm
Nice.
like, "Let me think about it." Yes. And since then
Hmm.
they've sent me two, and they never asked for anything. There was no expected review or video or anything like that. For a video, I mean, I didn't forget I had done it, but I did it. But beyond that,
Hmm.
I have been very blessed to work with, Ecamm, BeLive, Riverside, StreamYard, and they all reached out to me. And
Hmm.
and I hope anybody hearing this or watching this doesn't go, wow, what an ego. No, trust me. I Every time somebody sends me something like that, I'm like, wait a minute, what? I always check the email, make sure they send it to the right Kevin. And again, that all comes from that. And
Yeah.
and so, you don't know what you're going to put out there. But here's the other thing too. As you build your library,
Hmm.
then you have something to pitch to someone. There may be a brand or a sponsor out there. Because I think the flip side is we sit back and just wait for people to
Hmm.
call us. Man, I'd really like I'll throw Elgato. This is a mic out. I'll throw Elgato. I really want Elgato, man. If well, why don't I reach out to them and say, hey, I absolutely love your products. And I'm using this as an example. They're all not great, but they have some good products. But you get what I'm saying, and just let them know. It may not lead to anything, but then again, they may go, hey, can we talk more? And
Yeah.
having that archive saying, well, here's some shows I've done, or here's some other things like that to point back to, whether it's two or three or 40 or 50, that goes a long way.
Yeah, what's so impressive about that is I know when I was going along and I'm going, oh wow, this company makes a light to go over your monitor to shine on
Mhm.
your keyboard. I've never thought that. I get approached by someone with a product like that, and then you get approached by all these different products companies, and you go, wow, the opportunity is kind of out there, and that's pretty exciting. And just want to share because I know you guys. Work with Dale Roberts, and he's helped you guys out with some stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
Dale's a master on brand sponsorships and stuff like that, especially on how to go and seek them an opportunity. I just thought I'd throw a little pitch in for Dale because
Oh, Dale's
he
great.
has great ideas on just like what you were saying there, Kevin, that I think are very helpful for people. And next, I wanted to ask about. I guess this is kind of about repurposing, turning your video podcast into like a content machine for your social media or your website or blog or whatever. Do you think in when you're producing a video podcast, like I'm going to be doing this after with it, and maybe you do things to shape that? Can you share a little bit on that?
I mean, I think that would be strategic to do that. It's not necessarily my first thought going in. My first thought, and this also happens to be because I tend to do my shows live, is how can I provide the best to the audience? And one of the things when in your last question that you asked Kevin, and you talked about brand deals and things like that, but even people who are in a totally different kind of business, or really any business,
Mhm.
think about the guest experience.
Mhm.
When you have a guest on, you're giving them the spotlight. And this is where repurposing ties into this. Am I sharing the video that highlights something they said that was powerful? Am I tagging them? Am I promoting them before and after they come on? And how am I doing that within the show? Am I going, thanks for coming on, Gord, tell everybody who you are? Or am I saying, he's the world's leading expert in Camtasia. He's an outstanding educator for people learning YouTube. And he's got a growing channel that has 10, 20,000 subscribers. Welcome, Gord Isman. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us, before we get into your history, tell us a little bit about your current project that you're working on. Okay, so now I've made you seem like a star. I've given you a chance to promote what you're doing up front when the most people might be listening or watching, and now we get into the conversation. And I
Very
think
powerful. Yeah.
not enough people think about that. If they come on and they have a good time with you and they trust you and you give them a good experience, they come away thinking that you're up here, and now you've changed the whole dynamic between begging somebody for an opportunity and offering something of value to them with no ask on it. And then later, either you can reach out or they come back to you, or you continue the relationship, and that has value in its own right. And so I think, repurposing is important to drive people to what you're selling, to the actual video and all that. But I also think from a relationship standpoint, from a branding standpoint, not everybody, from a relationship standpoint, I'm talking about the guests, but from a branding standpoint, not everybody who sees your thumbnail image is going to watch the video. They may see your thumbnail on Facebook. Not everybody who sees your story or your reel on Instagram is actually going to click through.
Right.
But what they're going to do is they're going to see, hey, you're having conversations with interesting people. You're talking about topics in your industry. Boy, he's doing stuff. He's out there. He's a thought leader. She's making things happen. She's not sitting back waiting for somebody to give her an opportunity.
Yeah.
And all these things go into, building your brand and the perception that you're on top of things. So there's a value in repurposing beyond whether it simply drives views on YouTube or Spotify. There's a whole branding aspect that this piece of content now opens up to. And without video, you're only getting 15-20% of the way there in my humble opinion.
Let me add to
Sure,
that
Kevin.
too. I think also, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. There's looking at it as you're the host, you have a guest on, and then you're the guest. I am more likely to share an episode I've been on if I felt like I had a great time. The host wanted me on. It wasn't all about them. And I've been on those shows where Ross and I talk about this in the book. I'm like, did you forget you invited me on? I don't have an ego, but hello. And then there's no ask or expectation. I've been asked to be on shows and they wanted me to sign releases and guarantee that I would promote it. And my thought is like, that's your job to repurpose and promote it. But man, if you have me on and we have a great time and I enjoyed it and we vibed and you ask some great questions, I am far more likely to share that. Now I get something out of sharing it, but I want to promote you too. So I throw that out there to think, for people to think about. I think, why not think of other ways I can use this, but at the same time, it may have that one and done life for now. But repurposing doesn't have a date unless it's like a date specific. You may come back a year later and go, ooh, you know what? Ross said something really cool in that now is even more pertinent. So I'm going to pull that clip out because we think everybody watches like in the time zone it was in, and it just doesn't. We do it linearly, but people don't watch that way. So anyway, I just want to throw that in.
Sure. That's pretty cool. I'm curious. I think we talked a bit about this in terms of revenue, sponsorships, and things like that. If I were to say to you, is there anything special or uniquely different about video podcasting when it comes to monetization, or is it pretty much thinking about the same as if it was long form video content on YouTube? I know there's the stuff we position because YouTube as the platform for searchability and discoverability, and that gives a big boost to that, and then you sort of inherit all of the YouTube monetization stuff. But as we know, YouTube Partner Program is not something that's so readily accessible to people that are just starting out. So, can you share a little advice on that monetization front?
Yeah,
Well,
Kevin, you want to take that?
I whether it's a long video or a video podcast, I do think advertisers may lean into video podcasting more. I've heard a stat recently that typically, I didn't fact check
Mhm.
it, that podcast listeners spend more money. And so therefore a lot of times it's in there. You know, I would think, I can't speak for advertisers, but even having the bonus of that visual promotion in there is even better, especially if they have a product that they want, to advertise in your show.
Right,
And I think if you know you're going into a video podcast format and you know it's going to be longer, it does open you up
right.
to actually creating more sponsor breaks that you can control, as opposed to the ads that YouTube puts on your channel, which I would encourage everybody to turn them on. That, yeah, you can go in there, manipulate them, but it's not the
Mhm.
same as, hey, coming up, we're going to be talking about this, but let's talk about our, sponsor for this segment. Okay, that's way different. That's
Yeah.
my take on it.
Yeah, I see a lot of that sponsors for segments, especially in the shows that are more established, that they've got so many sponsors, and you do a little pitch for them in the middle of your podcast, and maybe two or three times, depending on the length of what your podcast is. Did you have something you wanted to add there, Ross? I
I'll
thought,
just say that
yeah.
there's two ways that everybody who is starting out, even if they don't have much of an audience and they're not monetized on YouTube, can still start that feel that they're getting into business and have an opportunity to make some money from their content. Is one, whatever your business is, should be your first sponsor, right? My very first show was, and today's show is brought to you by Livestream Universe. For all things live streaming, check us out, livestreamuniverse.com, right? So whatever your business is, you can make that your sponsor. That does two things. One, it sends people to your website or wherever where they actually might buy something, and lets people know maybe 8 months from now they'll need whatever service or product you have. They might not need it now, but at some point. Um, but the other thing it does is it lets sponsors know, hey, I can talk about a business or a brand in a professional, enthusiastic, and natural way within the flow of my show. Maybe you would like me to talk about your brand this way. Um, so that's one thing. Like, as I've gotten opportunities, there's never been an issue of how is Ross going to talk about my brand. Like, I
Yeah.
know that he knows how to, discuss it in an appropriate and a way that we would be proud of.
Yeah.
The other thing is affiliate. Anybody can sign up. Some of them you have to get approved, but find products related to what your business is and what you're talking about. What is your content about? The other cool thing is, no matter what your content is about, you're doing a podcast, and people who are listening or watching your podcast are interested in what gear are you using. So anybody doing a video podcast can list, hey, the products that I used. So go out and sign up for the Amazon affiliate program, or sign up for different,
Mhm.
retailers in whatever space you're in, and list a few products that are related to your content. Of course, if you talk about a book, put the link to the book and so forth. Hopefully you have an affiliate that relates to that. But even if you don't, again, it's a practice that as you start doing these things, it becomes easier and easier. And where
Mhm.
YouTube is different than podcast directories is the YouTube audience is used to the idea that people are putting affiliate links and related link. Like, people put related links in the podcast, but often in an audio podcast, but often that's about like going to listen to more or learn more about this topic. Whereas the YouTube audience has no problem with Gord listing the gear he used to make this video, or listing down that you can get consulting from him at this place or what have you. They'll expect a link he'll use as affiliate link to our book. All those things are expected, and why not participate in that? If you don't have a product that you're selling or something, then sell your guest product, sell your, find some way to do an affiliate. And the beautiful thing about that is as you grow on YouTube and as your videos are seen more, you continue to reap the benefits of that. In fact, you reap the benefits of that even if it's not from your own channel. If you
Yeah.
go on other people's channels and they put an affiliate link in, you notice, hey, people are still buying StreamYard 4 years, 5 years after I did shows on the StreamYard channel.
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to say this for the last minute and change. There'll be an affiliate link down below for the book
There you go.
for you to go
Well
That's how
played.
pick
it's
up on
done, Gord.
Amazon. Like you just like
Well
led
played.
right into that,
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah.
And what I loved about what you said was I'm in the process of finishing up a YouTube course now that I've been presenting for 7 weeks now. And one of the things I'm doing next is the whole how to play call to actions throughout your video. And like you just gave a great example of saying how if you can develop that skill of gracefully in the middle of something segue into a call to action that's just fluid and then come back, like that's a skill you develop, and you do that wonderfully, both of you, because it just comes so naturally. Like you probably don't even need to think about it, whereas someone like me would oh, I better do this right, the handoff in and out kind of thing.
And your audience is happy to hear about it if they're watching you to learn how to do something with video. And then you say, and by the way, if you want to learn more, I have a course coming out that they're going to be like, cool, let me look at the course. I'm already here watching this video to learn about it. So when your product is aligned with what people are coming to watch you with,
Mhm.
I don't know, whenever somebody like say in the space talks about a new microphone or a new audio interface or camera or whatever that they may be promoting, I'm thinking, cool, I'm going to follow that link and check it out. I want to
Mhm.
learn about that. Maybe I even want to get it. So when it's appropriate, man, that's a good way to talk about it.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So my sort of last main general question is um, publishing frequency. I know for a podcast, I would think it's more like people expect like a show with a certain frequency of publishing and that. But now because we're in video and we're in a platform like YouTube, does the same frequency and consistency expectation apply, basically?
I think it depends on the show and the topic. I mean, if you're doing, I know some, I don't know personally, but I know of some creators that do daily financial stuff
Mm,
and they're going to be out there, or real estate or something like that, or news. Um, but the reality of it is people watch in different time zones and different times on
mm,
YouTube, and it really doesn't even matter when you published. I mean, quite honestly, I think the publishing time is irrelevant because, I could show you videos that I published that did nothing for months. I've got one for a year, and then all of a sudden now it's one of my top 10,
mm.
and I couldn't even tell you the day I published it. I don't even remember the time. So I think there's a rhythm that you can develop to help you stay in it.
Mhm.
Um, I fell into the trap early on of saying, okay, I'm going to produce, I'm going to tell my audience every Tuesday it's going to be new. And I realized they don't care, and I couldn't maintain that. I like to create something new every week, but even over time, I'm like, if I don't get to it, I don't get to it. This week we're recording this, I dropped 2 videos because of two different, well, actually because of the book. I wanted to get something
Mm,
out on that. So I think it depends on the content. I think it depends on your schedule. I think it's far better, whether you're going to go live or not, to create a schedule that works for you and then bring value to what you're doing and let that drive it, as opposed to, well, I've got to put out something every Wednesday because I've made up this arbitrary date and schedule that nobody's going to hold me to. So that's my take on
okay,
it.
cool. So I have I guess one
Is this
one
the
more.
lightning round?
Well,
I'm just joking.
yeah, actually, I was trying to think of how to put this. Yeah, so if I were to ask you guys, what's one special piece of advice that we didn't cover in our conversation today that you would like to share about people looking to explore video podcasting that may not have done it before? Like what's something to inspire them to get them off their seat?
Ross, you want to go first?
Something we didn't talk about. So my first thought came to something that we did talk about. So
Okay, well, you can emphasize if that's worthwhile emphasizing.
yeah,
That's fine
I
too.
mean, I'll just say that, I was doing a video podcast before we called it a video podcast, because back when I started live streaming, video podcast meant something distributed through RSS to the podcasting apps with video that very few people these days even remember or know about or knew ever existed. Um, I think from my experience, if you're doing a good audio podcast, again, turn the camera on. That's all. That's all. Like, if that's all you do, you are on your way to becoming a player on YouTube. You're on your way, and then slowly level up. Make an effort to improve the lighting the next time. Maybe make an effort to look at the camera a little more. But I'm telling you, I did everything wrong, and I had established myself. I grew an audience. I got all sorts of opportunities. My best performing videos, I had no idea what time to release them or how to optimize them. The more I've learned, the more I've struggled. So, I mean, you can overwhelm yourself. So, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is start doing it, and then, you can upgrade it. But if you're already doing an audio podcast, you don't have to change the game because there's video.
Yep.
Um, it's almost more if you're doing a video podcast and then you're going to release an audio version where you have to think, okay, did I describe or did I say, oh, the book's over here? Well, that means nothing to an audio only audience. You got to say, video podcasting made easy. You're sitting on the shelf. It's got a blue background.
Well
It's
played,
over
Ross.
my
Well
shoulder. And that's how I have it here in my room or whatever. So you've got to be a little more descriptive. But if you're going from audio and you basically just have the camera looking in on you,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, a 90s simulcast where the camera is all the way across the room, as Kevin talks about in the book, and nobody pays any attention to it whatsoever. And it's just this continuous wide shot, like a security cam. I don't think in 2024 that plays, but I think if you have a webcam on your, sitting on your computer or on a tripod, you're using your phone and it's facing you and you got some light in front of you, chances are people love that as an audio podcast. They're going to love it with video too. And they're going to want to look and see what you look like and how you're reacting when you do things. So that would be my thing is, both of us talk about this a lot. Like, get going, give yourself a chance, and see how it goes. And then there's all these steps we talk about that you can start to improve your game with video and with podcasting in general.
But I do think it would be cool to do a video podcast show now called Security Camera. So I'm thinking about that. Let me throw this in. The first thing I thought about, and I agree with everything Ross said, is that for everybody listening or watching this, don't sit around and wait for permission to do it. You can overthink this. And I was calling up a quote while he was talking that Rob Wilson, who's with vidIQ, once said, and he said, YouTube hates procrastination. If it can't find the content from you, it will find it from someone else. So the longer you keep thinking about it, somebody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And if that's not motivation for your business or your nonprofit or whatever, just think about that. YouTube is like, well, I know Gord started something, but we're going to wait and see if somebody else does it. Now they're going to be like seeing if the viewer wants that. So give yourself a lot of grace. Don't worry about how good it's going to be. I even said this in the book. There's a lot of people that say, your first video will suck. It may not. I think that is actually the bad message to send out. Your first video may be like, dang, that was actually pretty good. But don't even measure that. Just give yourself a shot and do it out there. I mean, look at this book. You know, I mean, we could have like, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. We just did it. We just did it. And yeah, there's more books now I want to write because of this has been a fun process. But yeah, just don't sit around and overthink it too much, or you'll actually, I think yourself out of doing it.
Those are great words of wisdom from both of you. And you reminded me of something that was important early on in my YouTube days. And that was when I was about to interview Nick Nimmin as one of my first live interviews. And we're sitting here and I'm stumbling through this and through that. And he just says in the middle, because he's known to just say, just do it, like get started, right? And he says, Gord, just press record. This fumbling and mess, it's okay. People are going to relate to it. And I go, what do you mean? I don't want to show this, that, and the other. And she says, just press, go live now. And I did it. And I like this whole perfectionist thing and stuff that I used to
Oh,
get totally buried in. It like the tension went away in 5 minutes.
yeah.
And my very, it was, I think, with Miss Eileen Smith, the first time I was using OBS and everything. And I got her in there and it's like, my audio doesn't work. And for 20 to 30 minutes, I sat there with people waiting, fumbling, trying to make it work till she eventually says, Gord, let's just go to Google Meet and we'll take care of it from there. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, out of the gate, I'm the biggest disaster, and then you begin to realize that things like errors in your screens or typing and that, it's like, it's the reality. People are
Oh,
there to
yeah.
see you, right? And
Yep.
so, but those were great
That reminds me of
messages.
something, Gord, real quick, that we've both learned over the years and we didn't talk about, which is travel light. You
Mm.
know, the phone or whatever you have in your pocket, if that can get the interview or get the video that you need or whatever, it's much better than having a heavy kit that you've got to set up and
Mhm.
then you miss the shot, you miss the opportunity. Use what you have,
Yep.
get it done, get the video, and then you can always regroup later and go, maybe I should get a little bit better phone or a little bit better camera or something
Yeah.
like that. But ideally, you can grab this and capture almost anything you need for
Yeah.
your content, and you should. And the less you burden yourself when you travel, the quicker you can get that in the moment shot. And of course, that's what content's about these days. It's about getting it quickly, getting it up there, getting it out there, and giving the world a chance to see,
Yeah,
what
you
you're
guys
doing and
covered
what you're
that very
talking
nicely
about.
in the book. You went through all these different scenarios about getting ready and when you think about if you simplified it and you got the moment, like you're saying, it makes the world a difference. Get
I mean, to
you can
quote the
yeah, yeah.
great philosopher Larry the Cable Guy, just get her done.
Get her done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for all of that. And I'm just curious now in wrapping up. First, tell us where everyone can reach out to each of you individually or to find out more about what's the future for the book and what may follow. Ross,
Well,
you want Kevin, go first. Okay.
the book is available on Amazon, and I think Gord mentioned there's links in his description, so click them and just share them with a friend. There's other versions of it coming at some point. We're going to work on that. As far as finding me, there's really only two places, kevinkolbe.com, which is my website, and then YouTube, I'm at Kevin Kolbe. I try and keep it simple so I'll remember where I am.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Ross?
I'm at livestreamuniverse.com, and you can contact me through there or Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, and go ahead and message me if you'd like to get in touch.
Okay, cool. And just out of curiosity, I noticed, Kevin, that you're doing a little bit of a pivot in your YouTube world,
Yeah.
helping the 40 plus crowd come to life on platforms like YouTube. How are you enjoying that? And is that
Oh,
a long-term passion for you?
yeah. I love it. I mean, I just turned 18 last week, so I thought, what better? I got to tell you, it's been the absolute best thing I've done as a creator with this second career on YouTube. I was just telling my wife the other day. I mean, I absolutely love creating. I love what I do. but this has lit a fire under me that hadn't really gone out, but it's like, oh dang. And here's what's happening. Yeah, I mean the subscribers and the views are insane, but for me it goes deeper. It's when you look in the comments, and it's not just like, hey, I really appreciate the video, which is a nice comment, but people are leaving deep comments and sharing their stories and their struggles and their wins. And then you've got people in there encouraging other people. And I'm like, to me, this, people talk community all the time, and this is community. It's a community I wanted to be a part of. I am now, and it's just, oh my word, I love it. I love it. And in fact, as soon as we get off this, I've got to finish up a video for next week for that community. So,
well,
thanks for asking.
I watched. You're welcome. I watched your video this morning that you just put out, and I got inspired because I'm going to put a nice comment in there about my own story applicability. But that inspired me too. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Ross,
yes,
what's up with you? I'm always looking at you.
Yeah, what's up with
busy
you, Ross?
with so much around the book publishing, and you do newsletters and everything. I wonder, when do you sleep?
Well, after the next book comes out, I may get some rest, but I got to make a quick pivot to, of course, we're going to still be talking and promoting this book, and hopefully soon we'll be out with an audio book and maybe some other offerings that go along with this book. But my 5th book on 100 predictions for live streaming and digital media, and it'll be the 10th year overall of the predictions. So I want that to be something that comes out a little bit earlier this year because Podfest is earlier, and every year I seem to do this the week before Podfest, and then I'm like, how am I going to get my energy back? How am I going to get my energy back? So they moved up Podfest to the middle of January. So I'm hoping to do this maybe late December at the very latest, so that I can have a couple of weeks to just wind down after the launch before Podfest.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, that's what's coming up for me. Book number 5, and then I'll be speaking at Podfest in January.
Well, that's awesome. I'd love to see that you're both so busy and fired up in what you're doing. And I just
we didn't talk about the bus tour. Oh, well, never mind. That'll be another show.
Well, we can do another chat then. Okay.
Well, we're getting estimates on the bus wrap, and it's pretty costly.
So again, I'd like to thank you both for a wonderful discussion today, and I wish you all the best and success with the launch of the book. And so far, it sounds like it's doing great out of the gate. And to everyone on YouTube, it's been a while, and I'm really grateful to come back and share this chat with Ross and Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Gord.
Okay.
To quote the great philosopher Larry the Cable Guy, just get her done.
Get her done.
Yeah.